You saw the first ones with me.
Turn the world on with a smile.
That's right. Oh, well, sing some more.
Because we're live.
I like it.
I know. Good
It's a long
evening,
way to
everybody.
We're Al.
I didn't know Victor could sing.
We're in the minute. Do you sing a lot?
By myself all the time.
Oh, in the shower.
In the shower, in the car.
Well, we're going to have a great show. Glen Weinzimer is with us. The Smart Ride's getting ready to launch.
We are indeed. 2 weeks. We'll be in Miami.
excited.
Right, Victor?
I'm
and
super excited.
Victor from Pride Lines and
Girl.
John Hayden from South Florida Gay News going to tell us all about
Great job on your deal, Faye.
the Pride.
About Pride
Halloween.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
And a big story here that we're going to lead with tonight. Well, let's begin by queering up breaking news. Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine talks about if the LGBTQ really supports the T, and a little bit about Dave Chappelle in a White House interview with Queer News Tonight. This is part 3 of part 4. This evening, Queer News Tonight brings you Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine. She is America's first 4-star trans admiral and the first trans Senate confirmed cabinet member. Tonight, Levine talks about the LGBTQ community. Hear her thoughts about the attacks on the trans community and if the L, the G, the B, and the Q are doing enough in supporting the T. I ask her about what we have watched in America over the controversy of Dave Chappelle. Watch this.
I know that our community has President Biden's support. He has articulated that numerous times, including in his first address to Congress. We have Vice President Harris's support. We have support for our community across the administration, including at HHS with Secretary Becerra. And so I will do everything that I can in my role as the Assistant Secretary for Health to advocate for health equity and to advocate for equity, inclusion, and diversity for all members of the LGBTQI plus community.
All right. Well, and speaking of that, let's zero in on your representation in our community, the one that you just talked about. 21, as you've just said, represents really the best of times. We have never seen over the last 8 or 9 months the embracement of our LGBTQ community in history from President Biden, Vice President Harris, from the White House. Just breathtaking what we have seen, and even the desire to ensure that LGBTQ has a seat at the table. You're partially a representation of that, and there's dozens of representation of that. That is the best of times. But we're also seeing the worst of times, and the worst of times for our community is specifically aimed at trans. The state laws that are limiting medical access in states, and how we're dealing with youth in our states, and even the violence that we're seeing against the trans community. What do you think about it? Does it disappoint you that in the same space, at the same time, we're seeing amazing gains for our broad community, but really terrible situations for the T in our LGBTQI acronym?
Well, you know, whenever we see progress and we see tremendous opportunities for even more progress, it is not unusual to then see challenges, as you have been articulating. It is very challenging to see those laws in states that seek to limit the ability of transgender youth to participate in activities such as sports, and the most egregious ones that seek to limit their ability to seek standard of care medical treatment. And so, you know, at HHS and across the administration, we will do everything we can to push back against any type of laws or bills or any attempt to limit, again, the LGBTQI plus community in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Transgender youth are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to bullying and harassment, and we need to support transgender youth, not seek to limit their ability to participate in sports or their ability even to access medical care.
I'm curious, after the midterm elections, I hear you in terms of your role of health versus the politics. Are you optimistic things are going to improve in these fronts for the trans community in late 22, 23, and beyond? Do you have optimism?
Well, I'm a positive and optimistic person. And so I think that things will continue to improve. Of course, we are going to see challenges. But I think that, with a president that sees us and supports us, with a vice president that sees and supports us, and the support that our community has across the administration, that we will see progress.
Very good. Well, and this week I interviewed Tori Cooper. I wanted to ask you about this. Speaking of the community, we're going through some self-analysis in the LGBTQ community of where we're doing and how are we doing a good enough job. And conversations are going on all over America about what we're watching happen to the trans community, and we're challenging ourselves in the L, G, and the B, and the Q if we're doing enough. And I asked Tori Cooper from the HRC, first trans person of color ever to serve on a committee for HIV for the White House, if the LGBTQ community was doing their part in standing up for the T. And Tori Cooper was unequivocally clear that the answer was no. Where do you think we are? Is the L and the G and the B and the Q in the community doing? You're the top voice of the trans community, certainly in America and arguably one in the world. How do you think our community is doing?
Well, I think that our community is always stronger when we stand together against the challenges that we face. And so, again, being a positive and optimistic person, I think that the trans community certainly welcomes the support of everyone in our rainbow family, so to speak. And I think that we can and will stand together.
Yeah. I also want to ask you about the broad community support for our community. There's been so much said and discussed in the last number of weeks about the Dave Chappelle special at Netflix and trans-related issues and LGBTQ-related issues. Any thoughts about what you've watched in America's discussion in the community and out of the community on Dave Chappelle?
I'm not really going to comment on that, but I think it's very important to understand the progress that our LGBTQI plus community has made, but that we have to make progress for everyone, including the most vulnerable in our community. I had mentioned that LGBTQI plus youth, particularly trans youth, are vulnerable. Seniors in our community are vulnerable. Immigrants in our community are vulnerable. And really, in many ways, the most vulnerable are LGBTQI plus individuals of color. And trans women of color, for example, are at risk not just of harassment or discrimination, but they are at risk of violence and murder. So we have to stand together. We have to work together to consolidate and then continue the progress that we have made for everyone in our rainbow family.
Well, tomorrow we are going to bring you the final part 4, where Admiral Levine talks about what is next for the LGBTQ plus community and her first reaction when I ask her if she understands the significance of her representation for our community.
What a great interview, Al. Kudos to you. But I have to ask, were you able to soften her up? Did she ever smile or laugh or giggle? I mean, and I know as a woman, we're less represented than men when it comes to everything. So you've got to show that you're not weak. You have to show that you're strong about everything and serious about everything. But did she ever maybe giggle?
She did not. In part 4, there was a moment where she gets emotional because I draw a contrast comparison of her in history compared to Bayard Rustin, to Sylvia Rivera and Harvey Milk. Oh. And the lens of time, 50, 60 years, we realize, these were icons that we didn't recognize were icons at the time that they were doing it. And I drew the contrast, well, that's what you're going to be. And she she pauses and she blushes, and it was as close to an emotional outburst as you could see. It's very interesting because I've put this in front of a lot of my trans friends, and everyone's reaction is exactly the same, which is, this is completely it. They have, the trans community generally has such a barrier built to be seen in a certain way because of fear, because of violence potential, because of employment rejection, housing rejection. They perform in a very specific way. And as I was going through this interview, I thought of that many times. She is more robotic than I would like her to be, but it's clear that that's who she is and what she needs to be. And of course, she's doing an incredible job for our community.
Trailblazer, beyond.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. Sorry.
No,
When you were asking about does the LG and B support the T, and I harken back to the beginning of the AIDS pandemic, where the G and the L really didn't work together or do much together, but it was a crisis that drew them in to protect their brothers and sisters. And when it comes to the T, for me at least, it's only been like a decade that it's really has risen to the point where it's a conversation or there's support service, especially in our community, from like SunServe for that community. And as we get more educated on it, I think it's easier to support something than you just hear that there are people that might be trans, but you really don't know anybody. It goes back to, I don't know anyone who has AIDS, so I don't react the same way. And I was just,
interesting to me, and you draw that, Tori Cooper, who is the first woman of color representing the trans community at the White House and for the HRC. I pointed out to Admiral Levine, she specifically, no bones about it, doesn't see the support in the L and the G and the B in the community for trans that she says we should expect. Any thoughts? Do y'all agree with that our community is not supporting trans the way we should? I
would agree with you, and I think Victor, his agency deals with a lot of the T, and as his organization and others, like I said before, SunServe, speak up, that brings it to the forefront and for conversation to happen. And they're in a great position to do that in a safe environment. And I don't know what Victor thinks.
Yeah, I think like any movement, everything takes time, and it's taken our community a while to get accustomed with the fact that women are referred to, same gender loving women are lesbians, not gay. People are reclaiming the word queer. And now there's the T that is more prominent in the community that we need to step up and be in support of. So we're constantly learning and evolving. What's important to Glen's point is that there are organizations and people out in the community that are trying to do that work, that are trying to spread education, or rather educate others. Where it's always saddening is when you're met with the resistance from the members of the community that they fall back on their comfort and what they are willing to understand and not wanting to push themselves forward. And I find that happens far too often.
Yeah. And Tori Cooper makes the point, how can we expect Mississippi to support the T of our acronym if the other members of our own community don't support it? It gives us a lot to think about. Well, I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and let's begin the show by welcoming anchor Faye What.
Yes, welcome me.
And she is a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Faye's Fur Family, and is the anchor of the travel news show, Happening Out.Travel. Also, make sure to catch the Faye What Show Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening. Can you guys believe that I'm still trying to recuperate from the weekend of crazy Halloween fun that we've been having? I'll be okay, but even my hair hurts. All right, let's get started with our next anchor, Glen Weinzimer. He's the founder of the Smart Ride, the second largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country, and the only one of its size to donate 100% of the funds raised to AIDS services organizations. He also owns Bona Italian Restaurant, where they celebrate Give Back Mondays, offering a portion of all sales to a different charity each week. Welcome back, Glen.
Thank you, Faye. It's always great to be back. It seems like I haven't been here in ages.
Yes.
I know.
Oh, maybe that was a wish.
That was a wish, maybe. Maybe it was a wish, but anyway, I'm here. Thank you for mentioning the Smart Ride. It is about 2 weeks away, and it is going to be live this year for the first time, obviously in 2 years. 2 days, 165 miles from Miami to Key West. All the proceeds that the participants raise, all is guaranteed to go to AIDS service organizations around the state.
And Glenn,
100%.
where are we for November 19th and 20th?
800, what?
For the 2 days, November 19th and 20th.
Yes, where are we?
Yeah, where are we? In terms of fundraising.
Fundraising. I'm like, I know where we are. I don't know exactly where you're going to be on the 19th and 20th, but we'll be in Miami. But financially, right now, between yesterday and today, they've raised another $20,000. So we're at $840,000 as of today. I sincerely believe that we will break $1 million in the next 2 weeks. And there's a little QR code right there. So if someone would like to jump in and make a donation, it'll go to our general funds that will go back to the agencies directly to provide
Please
those
help
services.
us. Just remind, I always give the opportunity to do this. Remind us how much has been raised through Smart Ride?
In the last 17 years, $12.5 million, and 100% of it has gone back to the AIDS service organizations around the state of Florida.
You don't hear very often.
And Victor is one of our recipients.
Yes.
The Pride Line.
Pride
Sure
Line.
am.
Love Pride
And
Line.
perhaps you should introduce Victor.
You know, that's a great idea, because it was my, right. Let's welcome anchor Victor Diaz-Herman. He is a first-generation Cuban-American advocate, activist, fundraiser, and strategist. He serves as the COO of Pride Line, South Florida's oldest direct services agency for LGBTQ people and grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organizations founded by gay and bisexual youth for LGBTQ youth and their allies. He is also COO, again, of Worth International Media Group with exclusive brands such as Recommend and Preview. In the business of creating stylish, engaging content, rich media solutions for the global travel and tourism industry for over 50 years. We're not doing shots tonight?
Wait, is Pride Line's a real thing? I'm not even
Really?
sure anymore. It's real.
I don't know what job I have at this point.
But that is quite an impressive resume. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you, Glenn. In addition to being CEO of Pride Line's COO of Worth International, I'm also rider number 18 for the upcoming Smart Ride.
Awesome.
So if you get a chance, go on to the smartride.org, search for my name, and make a contribution
And
to
are you
help us
riding
reach our
under your
goal.
name or Pride Line's name?
I'm riding under my name, but the Team Pride Liners team.
Oh,
So the smartride.org, Victor Diaz-Herman, help me reach my goal. And we're also one of the agencies that benefits from it. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And it's also now my pleasure to welcome John Hayden, a reporter for South Florida Gay News, covering politics, arts, and philanthropic organizations. John has been a journalist for 26 years, much of it covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood. He's interviewed nearly every big name except me in TV, movies, music, and considers the time he spent with Cher as the best 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
Good evening. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points for the Queer News for today, Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021.
So let's kick off the show with queering up the world. Inside Ghana's attempt to make being LGBTQ plus illegal will be world's first. Watch this.
Ghanaians united will never be divided.
We want to acknowledge the fight of our LGBTQI siblings in Ghana.
With or without makeup, they see me. I am a target. A lot of people want to see me perish.
It is clear that it's no for us in this country, irrespective of whatever the international community will think about us.
Homosexuality existed in Africa way before our colonial masters. So what is being imported is hate. What is being imported is homophobia.
Queer Ghanaians are going through the country's most intense crackdown yet.
LGBTQIAAP+.
A new bill making its way through Parliament would criminalize everything from queer identity to advocacy. It would disband all queer rights groups, on top of punishing a range of offenses that can carry up to 10 years in prison.
Weeks before Parliament resumed, a group of queer activists from Ghana gathered in a safe house to strategize against a bill that would criminalize their existence. As Queer News Tonight has reported, the controversial draft law contains a laundry list of offenses, including identifying as queer and any advocacy, media, or materials that could be considered support for the LGBTQ community. Prison terms could last 3 to 10 years depending on the offense. The Safe House meeting was led by Sparta GH, a project of LGBTQ+ Rights Ghana, a queer advocacy group. Their community center of First in Ghana opened in January, sparking outrage from religious, traditional, and political figures, but especially from the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, the bill's namesake. Within weeks, the center was raided and shut down by the authorities.
It's a huge story.
And it's not that far in our rearview mirror, where sodomy laws could send us to jail for many years, and you didn't even really need a witness, despite what that pesky Fourth Amendment says. I mean, this is what Karl Rove and George Bush, this is their playbook being played out on a massive scale around the world.
There's been a lot of conversation that a lot of the structural creation of this bill has been assisted by the harshest of Republican American voices in terms of creation. I just want to point out how scary this story is. I always tease and poke that the Gang of Three is among the worst voices in America for LGBT, and of course that's Tucker, Sean, and Laura. In the religious community, that's Franklin Graham and Liberty University. But those two sets of group, media and religion, has nothing on Ghana. Ghana, if they pass this, will become world history's #1 anti-LGBT ever. In Nazi Germany in 1939 and 1940, the Pink Triangles were rounded up and they were gassed. This is just a step removed from that moment of 1939 and 40, because this is not sexual activity discrimination. This is identification discrimination, meaning if you use the word or propel the word gay or LGBT, or you advocate for LGBT, much less, we're not talking about having sex, don't talk about having homosexual sex, you can be in prison for 3 to 5 years. We've never seen anything like this in the world.
Just imagine how many people are going to end up in prison if this law passes. Just by me walking into the studio right now, I could have 146 years in prison just by identifying as queer and having any materials on me that are LGBTQ related. Think about that.
And our community in America and around the world is not talking enough about this. Ghana is very likely going to pass this law, very likely going to pass it. And when they do, Ghana becomes, for our community, millions and millions and millions of wealthy LGBTQ people all over the world, this becomes our public enemy #1 in the world. And we have to stand up to protect these people.
All right, next, we are going to queer politics. 2021 Election Day, LGBTQ+ first celebrated in America. State and local elections Tuesday yielded some notable LGBTQ+ firsts and some important re-elections. Detroit elected its first out LGBTQ+ city council member. Gabriel Santiago Romero, a queer woman who grew up in the city after immigrating from Mexico, was elected from District 6, easily defeating Hector Santiago, no relation. There was no incumbent in the race. She is a Democrat, but city council elections are officially nonpartisan. A longtime community organizer, she is the first Latinx woman, woman from the LGBTQ+ community to be elected in the state of Michigan. Transgender man Dion Manley became the first out trans person elected in Ohio by winning at-large seat on the Ghana Jefferson City Schools Board in the suburbs around Columbus. There were just 5 other trans men elected in office around the nation. One of them, Philippe Cunningham of the Minneapolis City Council, lost his bid for re-election Tuesday
do you have it? Christopher Coburn, a queer man, was elected to the Bozeman City Commission in Montana, making him the first black member of the LGBTQ community to be elected in that state. All the winning candidates were endorsed by the LGBTQ Victory Fund.
Well, we told everybody we're live and we're having a teleprompter issue here. The elections yesterday, what do we think in terms of some of the results? It was kind of a mixed bag.
Very happy about the first Latinx woman, the first black trans in the other state, but not enough. And what happened in Virginia, geez, I mean, what a letdown.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Virginia.
I also want to find the positive or the silver linings. How great is it? How powerful is it that so many trans politicians are now coming out and running for office? I love to see that. That's activism. That's how we create change. Fine, we didn't win every election, but we're winning some. And we're making change by doing it. So
and we're neutralizing the LGBTQ as a non, we were talking before about a non-label. They're being voted in based on their politics, what they stand for, not on who they are as a person at home or
not on who they sleep with.
Right. And I also like where they're being elected from. You know, this is, I mean, granted, a city in Michigan, but it's still Heartland. It's still Minneapolis, but it's still in the Heartland. Columbus, Ohio is certainly not a blue bastion by any means. And so where they're getting elected, I think, is almost as important as the fact that they are.
You know, and I also echo Victor's observation of the that we like, whether they win or lose, we like to see them on the ballot. It was one of the things that I thought about with Admiral Levine. Now, not an elected official, but in a way an elected official, because she had to go in front of the Senate confirmation hearing, and then the Senate had to vote. They voted 52 to 48, so she won that election by two votes. It was very interesting because I asked her, what was your first reaction when the Senate confirmation vote came through, and it was 52-48, and it wasn't that this is historic, it wasn't I'm representing my community, it was relief that it was over. And I thought, exactly to the point that you just made, how challenging is it to even get out there and represent yourself when you know a very significant percentage of people are not going to like you? It must be incredibly tough.
Yeah. Well, well, now we clear up politics. Crystal ball. What the Republican win in Virginia means for LGBTQ America. In an opinion piece for The Atlantic, Zachary D. Carter wrote about yesterday's election in Virginia. He wrote, quote, Republican Glen Youngkin's victory in Tuesday's Virginia gubernatorial election was about schools. It wasn't about Donald Trump or inflation or defunding the police or Medicare for all or President Joe Biden's infrastructure agenda. It was really about critical race theory or transgender rights. Though those issues shaded the situation a bit by highlighting anxieties surrounding the education system. Fundamentally, the contest was about schools, specifically how many parents remain frustrated by the way public schools have handled the coronavirus pandemic. The good news for Democrats is that education is only narrowly beating out the economy as the top issue for Virginia voters, and that McAuliffe came close despite running a clueless and lethargic campaign. Democratic leaders in Washington also can't do that much more damage to local politics than they have this year. Barring a wild new development over the next year, Democrats should expect to lose Virginia's 2nd, 7th, and 10th congressional district a year from now, and be ready for a dogfight for the 4th district. These losses alone would be enough to eliminate the current Democratic majority in the House of Representatives, absent offsetting victories elsewhere, end quote.
I find his whole take lethargic. Honestly, I didn't care much for his view.
Because you disagree?
Yeah, because I disagree. I think it's assigning something very easy without going into looking at how much more was at play in Virginia this year and how much is it going to affect things. The midterms were already lost. The midterms were already lost when we lost redistricting rights in the 2020 election. But we look at things like during the Trump administration.
I apologize for interrupting because I want to pull that soundbite out. You think we've already lost the midterm elections?
Yes. In the House, for sure. For certain. But you look at who was winning during the Trump years. A Democrat was elected governor in Kentucky. A Democrat was elected to an open seat, albeit briefly, to an open Senate seat in Alabama. Now, neither one of these swung enough to change the election in the presidency 2 years later. But the fact is, this can be a warning bell. But just to assign it to one issue, like education, I think undersells and tries to paper over the real problems that Democrats are facing next year.
I think it's going to be time to band together and, fight against the future Trump people, because they're out there and they're ready to fight as well. So, I mean,
I'm curious, all of us think that our silver bullet against the werewolf, who is Donald Trump, is using Donald Trump's name. And in this election in Virginia, they weren't able to do that. McAuliffe was not able to call Trump out enough to have substantive effect, and the Republican candidate wouldn't even be seen or associated with Trump, but wouldn't reject Trump because he wanted Trump's base, his rabid base, but he didn't want to associate with him, and that seems like that strategy worked.
Yeah.
Is that the strategy playbook that we're going to see over the next 12 months? That Trump is going to be minimized, and the worst of the Trump base is still going to support candidates like this, and as a result, we are going to lose the House and maybe lose the Senate.
It could be, Al, and now scary times are coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
just because we have a Democratic president doesn't mean we have control.
Yeah, we're going to have to first, I think, for a couple of weeks, lick our wounds and have pity parties. And then around December 1st, we got to rally back and go, okay,
we've got to get
mofos. The war's on. Right?
Bring me a grease board and write down all the things we need to address straight on, whether it be education or the economy in Virginia and other places, and say, this is what people are looking to hear about, so let's focus the election on
The
it.
one silver lining that I've read a lot about today, which I agree with, the one silver lining is it's only Virginia and maybe New Jersey, and probably not going to be New Jersey, but it's only Virginia. So the Democrats get to see the rap in the mouth that they take in Virginia, and maybe that's the wake-up call to say, okay, for the next 12 months, unless we want the country to go this way, we better do something different.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's queer up South Florida gay news. In this together, the Wilton Elementary community supports Rosie's. A Broward County school board member took students from Wilton Manors Elementary to a restaurant in Wilton Manors. How is this a story, much less the story of the week, capturing international attention and sending Tucker Carlson's blood pressure through the roof? Silver linings. In this week's South Florida gay news, online and on stands tomorrow, I talk with the major players in this straw man drama, where kids had lunch at Rosie's and posted the pictures online. Well, Fox News picked up the story of the field trip, and granted, the story had more innuendo than facts, and they made it sound like a day at the gay bar. The vile hate that followed was swift and intense. I talked with Sarah Leonardi, who led one of the groups of kids, parents who came to defend the school, and Mayor Newton, who not only accompanied one of the groups, but also sat down with the flunky Governor Ron DeSantis, sent to investigate all the things that were going on. I also speak with Rosie's co-owner, John Ziba, who says the kids are welcome always. In the end, this is the story of a community coming together to show our best face while the world shows us their ugliness.
Dude, when I saw this, I was like, WTF? Like, are you serious? So what did that woman say? Give us a little taste of what she said. What did she say, the leader of the kids?
Sarah?
Yes, Sarah.
She is the school board member, and she says that her only regret is that she posted the pictures, because that's really what fueled it. This is a field trip that has happened for 10 years straight, minus last
kids
year.
are at Rosie's.
And it's not the first time kids.
And it's not the last time.
I see them at brunch. We all have seen them at brunch on Sundays with, a family Sunday fun day. This is basically just the right wing finding anything to get upset about. But I loved that the parents who came to the school, none of them were against this. They all know what they're getting. And I was speaking with some other reporters who were covering it, and they were like, the hardest part is to do this balance because we can't find anybody from around here that's against it. All the comments were vile from other parts of the world.
Because Rosie was getting phone calls all day long, people talking crap, calling them and crank calling them and everything, and none of those calls seemed to be locally.
Right, yeah, they were all out. Granted, zip codes, area codes, can be still from here, but for the most part, it does seem like they were all haters who have no idea what they're talking about.
And I think it's important to note that Rosie's, like you said, has been doing this for 10 years, and the point of the trip was not just lunch. They introduce them to the hospitality industry. They take them through the kitchen. They teach and show, if you're looking to do something like that, this is a great opportunity. Here's a local business that's made a success as a standalone, single, two-owner business. It's not a chain. It's two community people that give back constantly to our community.
And it's a pandemic.
And it's a pandemic. And, you know, this is, kudos to them for taking these kids and showing them, you know, options for life, whether it's just like going to a firehouse when we were kids or the police station, like, what do you want to be?
You know, it was funny because I watched NBC that day. We did not report this story, and John's done a really fine job of contextualizing the story for South Florida Gay News, which is great. We did not report on it, and on the Monday morning, or I think this was a Friday, or whatever day it was, where the big news of it, the NBC affiliate was camped out with a live television truck. They went live at 4, at 5, at 6, at 7, and 11 o'clock. And the reporter was standing in front of Rosie's doing all she could do to go, well, this is a big story, and it's a big story, and it's a big story. There's actually no story here, but it's a big story. It's a big story, but there's no story here because I can't find anybody that says this is a big story. So why am I here? Over, and it led every single block of NBC. The second thing that I think is really cool about this story is it gives us very close proximity. I mean, it's in the heart of, for those of you that are watching us around the country or out of the country, this is in the heart of our Main Street, our gay Main Street here in South Florida. We got to watch firsthand the ridiculousness of lying in the news. There was no story. These kids, for all intents and purposes, went to an empty building because there were no guests in. The restaurant was not open. They did this as a private event only for the students. They never saw the menus of the restaurant. They had a special menu that was printed with chicken nuggets and cheeseburgers on it. And it was designed to show them how a business worked. There were no gay people except for down the Wilson Drive, which you're in the heart of the gay district. All of the parents signed permission slips. The teachers went. The mayor went. The school board commissioner went.
And they live in Wilton Manors.
And they live in Wilton Manors Elementary. That is just a few blocks from the restaurant. There was no story. There never was. But I got to learn at Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, news doesn't have to be real.
You're just learning that now?
I learned it on the Wilton Manors Elementary story.
I just think it's wild because Rosie's is just a restaurant. It's literally just an eating environment. It's fine in the neighborhood, fine.
Calling it
fun,
a gay bar,
but
I mean, even gay people wouldn't call it a gay bar. You know, come on.
At all. But
Tucker,
anyway.
I still love you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, Glenn, we're going to move on.
That's our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 3,289,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 53,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 423 million vaccination doses have been administered in the United States.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine, and someone else needs to take that away.
In supporting that partnership, Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Rosie Weinzimer, transgender activist, author, spiritualist, actress, and reality TV personality. And Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, finally, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News. And we've got a nice one. LGBTQ Flash News. Missouri makes history with the state's first male homecoming queen. A high school student in Columbia, Missouri has just made history over the weekend by becoming the first ever male student to win the title of homecoming queen in his state. Zachary Wilmore, a senior at Rockbridge High School, won the distinction in part because he chose to run for queen rather than king. Early in October, he posted a poll to his Instagram page asking followers to vote as to whether he should seek the title of king or queen. This isn't the first time Wilmore has challenged his school's preconceived notions about gender either. He has challenged the school dress code on more than one occasion, wearing more femme or abstract outfits. Wilmore said, quote, "Teachers were allowed to make the call of what was appropriate. Many times I did feel like they could target students, and I did feel targeted in some scenarios," end quote. Zachary posted a video in his TikTok account of his big win. It also shows the school cheerleading squad, of which Zachary is a member of, rushing the field to congratulate him. I think this is absolutely awesome. He can challenge, and we all can challenge gender identification in any way we want. And this shows you can still be victorious.
Yes, Queen, yes! Oh, hail the Queen, Zachary!
I love that he had the confidence and to be able to do this. That he just felt safe with his friends, and the cheerleading squad and everyone else came out to support him, and obviously the school voted for him. So it says a lot about that community.
It says a lot about his classmates. And you know what? God save the Queen. Long may he or she reign.
I love, number one, that he's adorable. Number two, that his dress was fabulous. And number three, that he is messing things up. That is a great looking activist changing systems that are flawed. You go.
Yeah. Except in Virginia.
Well, except in Virginia.
Yeah. So that's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
So wait, I'm only getting flashed once tonight with Flash News? That's not fair. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closets and into the headlines. We need your support.
Look, if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound, and that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Faye Watt and Glen Weinzimer and Victor Diaz-Herman and John Hayden, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end the show, we have one final story.
Let's queer up gay culture. Gay man thriving, life coaches talk naked, loneliness and relationships. Recently, Queer News Tonight sat down with Andrew Sartori and Zach Bulls from Gay Man Thriving, a relationship website and coaching resource for gay men's relationships. Watch this.
Well, next up, we queer up mental health. Tonight we have a special interview with Gay Man Thriving, the naked truth of life, love, and relationships. Life coaches for our community, Andrew Sartori and Zach Bulls, have an amazingly popular online presence and best life coaching platform. They promote a free community for men looking to create connections with meaning. Gay Men Thriving offers workshops and coaching and have helped hundreds of men uncover their best selves and become more vibrant and confident. They work with men who are tired of feeling alone and are ready to open themselves up to love. So let's welcome the founders of Gay Man Thriving, Andrew Satori and Zach Bulls, to Queer News Tonight. Gentlemen, welcome to Queer News.
Al, thank you so much for having us. We're very thrilled to be here.
We are excited. We've done many segments on mental health. You know, I don't know if y'all know this, but this little thing called COVID-19 pandemic's been happening in the last couple of years. And mental health, I'm sure, for you hasn't been affected at all. No one ever talks about it. We're all just perfectly fine. That's been your experience as life coaches, needing to help support gay men everywhere?
It's definitely provided an opportunity for us to be more with ourselves without the normal hustle and bustle of everyday life, especially during the time of shutdown, lockdown. I think a lot of things that people had been overlooking and running from were brought more to the surface. So it absolutely was a time where we were more likely to face ourselves and a lot of the struggles that we experience.
Help us right off the bat. Distinguish life coaching from therapy or even psychiatry. Explain to us where you fall into the mental health reality for gay men.
Great question, Al. So they all serve a very powerful and important purpose. I think the key indicators, differences between therapy, traditional therapy versus coaching, is really the level of support that you're seeking and also what you're working on. Therapy, psychiatry tends to focus more on struggles and challenges and problems, really helping people shift from a dysfunctional to functional state to really being able to learn to survive as opposed to really struggling and experiencing major challenges. Coaching is going to be more geared towards shifting those from a place of surviving to thriving, from a place of taking people who are very functional to a place of an optimal life experience to really, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know thousands of gay men have followed you in your social media and your programming for Gay Men Thriving. Why do you think the gay community is noted for our social skills and our sociability? So it sometimes can feel like to the broader world, it's kind of an oxymoron that gay men are lonely. Kind of help us understand that. And for those that so many people are going to watch this interview, that they go, that's me. Explain why loneliness is going on in our community.
Do we have 2 hours? So the research shows gay men are much more likely to be single than straight men, straight women, lesbians, and trans people. And so most gay men over 45 are single, and there's almost there's a large group of gay men that have been feeling left behind, that actually don't feel like they're part of any gay community. And while, you know, this isn't the right word, but like maybe the Hollywood version of gay men are socialites, have all these gatherings and parties and things where they get to gather. And the truth is most gay men aren't living a life like this and are not experiencing the kind of emotional intimacy they want with a lover, a partner, or even really significant, meaningful friendship connections is also what we've found.
You know, to that point, and most gay men being single, that's going to surprise a lot of ears that hear that observation. How does our overt sexuality of our community, our dating apps, how does Grindr fold into this conversation? I've heard some people that said the more the more opportunity we have, the lonelier we feel. Is that your experience as coaching in this area of our community?
So we've found a lot of guys who want really great relationships they've tried the apps and they're like, oh, people only want hookups. I can't get a date with someone who actually could be partner potential, and a lot of times end up giving up on them altogether. And what we found is the apps are a tool, just like a hammer and a nail and wood. Some people can build a house with it. I certainly can't. Just it depends on how you use it. And they get a bad rap, the apps. And yes, it's true. There's lots of guys on the apps who fear commitment, who will ghost, who only want hookups and might lie about it. And ultimately what we're about is helping men create your own experience, your own reality, even when there's challenges going on outside of you. Like, for example, with the pandemic, lots of things to hook onto that, oh, this makes life really, really hard. Well, Zach and I, we've been having the best years of our lives, and guys who've been working intimately with us have been having the best years of their lives, because through the coaching and personal responsibility, we can create wildly satisfying experiences, dates, etc., even when there's lots of external obstacles.
Zero in on the differences in age here for gay men. I have many friends that are millennials, even Gen Zers, and they seem to be painfully unaware of how lonely they are in their single nature. So they're in Grindr or the dating apps, and it is just purely hookup. And then I have friends in their 40s that begin to turn in terms of their thinking process. And then you are in Austin, which has a much older LGBT, but specifically gay man population. I'm in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, and we are one of the we joke here at our different shows at Happening Out Television Network, we're the gayest place on planet Earth, and men in their 50s are retiring here because it is so comfortable. And so you would think coming to a playground like Austin or to Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, it would be heaven. But there seems to be this issue of loneliness being exacerbated, where there's thousands and thousands of gay men of like age around you in their 50s and their 60s, but they feel very lonely in their isolation. What do you do as coach to help those gay men face what the issues are that they should address?
Great question, Al. And yeah, what we've found is actually it doesn't really matter so much where you're living. It's all an inside game. It's an internal game. And there are so many blocks and limitations that we create for ourselves that are really fueled with self-doubts and insecurities. And age can play a big role in that. I know as a society and culture, gay men are bombarded with images of how we're felt or taught to feel that we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to look. And when we compare ourselves to those images, a lot of times, just as the image that you showed on the screen, when you compare yourself to other people, someone has to lose. And so what we really do is help gay men as individuals really start to develop trust in themselves, to stop putting up those walls, because we've developed and we've experienced a very unique set of core wounds from a very early age, rejecting ourselves from an early age, as boys, recognizing we're very different, and the behaviors that we're on. So we've created all of these mechanisms and all of these walls while pretending to be confident and pretending to be happy. So many of us don't trust ourselves to let those walls down and to open up and to make real connections. And hookups and sex can feel like a simulation of intimacy, and so many flock to that. But in reality, we have to trust ourselves to potentially be rejected, to be judged, to let those walls down so that we can let people in. And those are at the core of the skill sets that we help gay men develop, so that they can trust themselves to operate in this world and make those connections.
You know, it occurred to me as I'm listening to that explanation, very, very clear. By the way, thank you for that. The situation of how it works for you. Do you work in your life coaching on an individual basis, or is it a group basis? Explain to us how this works.
All of the above. We definitely have different levels of support depending on the type of challenges that each individual are facing. We have very potent group organization programs. We also offer one-on-one individual support. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, and even when we say the word life coaching, like you could talk to 100 other life coaches and they'll have entirely different processes. We've got curriculums as well that we want every person to go through who wants to have thriving relationships starting from within. And we're always creating new experiences as well. And as we're constantly growing and evolving ourselves and we're training new coaches, our offers are always evolving, our experiences are always changing, just like we are.
One thing I'd like to add is that this work is not for the faint of heart. It really requires, there's no magic pill, there's no quick fix. It really requires looking at the things that we're typically running from and avoiding and facing our fears.
Yeah.
You have to put in the work.
Yeah, heard very loud and clear. I understand that from a standpoint of our shows. I'm a member of many large Facebook groups, gay men over 40, many groups. And there can be 30, 40, 50,000 guys in it. And I'm struck when I go to it of, first off, trying to be positive in the threads that I see, and we're promoting different stories, like a story like we're doing with you tonight. But overwhelmingly, the loneliness that vibrates in the group is just an overwhelming experience of just wanting to have somebody lying next to them that they can hold on to. As simple as that. Tell us at Gay Man Thriving, how do we get in touch with you, and what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is our website, gaymanthriving.com. Has a great description of some of the things that we do and has a place where you can contact us and schedule a call if you're interested in exploring if working with us feels like a good fit. We also have a very potent Facebook community, Gay Man Thriving, the naked truth of life, love, and relationships, where we'd be happy to see you join.
And you do a very smart thing in your marketing. You have naked life coach embracement. We actually did a little bit of modifications on some of your images. We worked on that image to get it into YouTube and Facebook, which we love. It's a very interesting subject and very, very important. We're coming out of pandemic, hopefully. Gay men are going to be the first to travel the world again, but we want to travel in a healthy and fulfilling way, and that may be single, but it's the choice of single, or it may be embracing to find the kind of relationship that you want to pursue. And Gay Men Thriving is an interesting place to look to see if you can't find some really positive things to add to your gay life. One last question. Gender and gender identification is so big and such an incredible topic here at Queer News Tonight and our platforms. Gay Man Thriving is very specific. That was designed, and do you think, what do you think about gender fluidity in these days? Will we always be just gay man?
So I'm glad you're bringing that up. So we came up with this name 4 years ago, and we're all always evolving. So I'll even speak for myself. Before I came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I used to be repulsed by the image of two men kissing. And now look, I've been married for 2 years. And so this conversation it wasn't on my radar 4 years ago, and now it is. And I believe our name is going to be irrelevant within time, because what we teach in our programs is is relevant to
universal.
everyone, whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, male, female, don't identify as male or female. And we do have clients that identify more as bi than gay. And we've had trans clients who are currently identifying as men, and we've actually talked about opening up some of our programs and services to a wider range of people. Starting with gay men has been really helpful because it gave people who did identify as gay men and maybe not feeling understood for being a gay man a safe space. And I look forward to us expanding and being even more inclusive.
Yeah, super interesting, and the evolution that I hear. By the way, you're in good company because President Obama evolved on this subject too. So evolution is good, and it's a fascinating subject. Life coaches sounds like something that our community really can utilize, and we really need, especially in what we've experienced in the last 2 years in COVID-19 pandemic. Congratulations to you, and we encourage you. Reach out and look at Gay Man Thriving. Andrew Sartari and Zach Bulls, thank you very much for being with us at Queer News Tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Al.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth